Well, hello there, good people of the world. It's the Big Heavy, and today I am here to bring you a review of the Anker TB5 Thunderbolt 5 multi-performance, supreme, multi-function, dock, all the things, all the words. And unlike most of the reviews I've seen out there, this one is not sponsored by Anker. This was not sent to me for free in exchange for my compelling and witty thoughts. Rather, it was sent to me in exchange for sending $400 of my hard-earned cash to Jeff Bezos so he can launch more celebrities into space. And the reason I did that was, not to get some super fantastic Thunderbolt 5 device connected to my MacBook, but to solve kind of a dumb problem, quite frankly. And I'll go into the details at the end. The short story is I have a dual monitor USB-C set up in my office out here, which I reviewed in the video that will fly somewhere out in the ether up there. And with my previous setup, I had two USB-C monitors connected via two cables to my MacBook M1 Pro. Worked great. It was fantastic. Never had any problems whatsoever. And then when I supposedly upgraded to M4 Pro MacBook, for some reason it would only work with one monitor at a time. I don't know why. I called Apple, I called Dell, talked to everyone. There's rumors that there's some sort of low-level wackiness with the M4 Pro. But the short story is this dock addressed my problem. I can now very happily connect two monitors to my M4 Pro. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of a somewhat begrudging user of this device since it fixed a problem I didn't have before upgrading to the latest and greatest in Apple technology. So since I had to do that, I figured I'd give you a quick rundown of this device. Since a lot of the reviews out there are sponsored, that doesn't always make them unreasonable, unfair, or dishonest. But some of them were a little over the top. I think I watched a couple where they were talking about how this is a life-changing device and the best thing since proverbial sliced bread. I don't think it's that amazing. There's some pros, there's some cons, and that's what I want to walk you through today. Now, I'm not going to do an unboxing of this thing. I've actually already set the unit up. That's why I'm able to wave this box around so dramatically, because the unit is actually fairly heavy. And that's mostly because I'm an adult, you're an adult. Adults don't watch each other take things out of boxes. You will see zero bar graphs, benchmarks, or charts in this review, primarily because I'm just a big dumb animal and all I really wanted to do was get two monitors connected to one laptop. But as I've talked about before in my desk setup videos, one of my goals is to make things easy to use. I do really like being able to plug in one cable, have keyboard, mouse, monitor, all that stuff work together, which I kind of had working before with two cables. But now with both cables being able to plug into this single Anker dock, I'm living my best one cable dreams. So first, let's start off with the good. The thing's pretty nicely built. It seems to be made out of some sort of metal or a really good approximation of plastic that's coated in metal. It's solid. It has nice little grippy feet underneath so it doesn't slide around all over your desk. So before, when I wanted to attach peripherals, I'd have to go plug them into the MacBook. I needed to attach a regular USB thing. I either had to plug it into the side of my monitor, which looked a little janky, or I had to go and find an adapter and plug it into the MacBook. I frequently use an external USB-C hard drive for editing videos and things like that. And now I can just plug that into the dock along with everything else and get full speeds versus if I plugged it into the monitor. It was kind of driving a lot of stuff over USB-C. And I found my data transfer speeds would be a little bit slow. On the back of the device, you get three Thunderbolt ports. One is upstream, which effectively is the thing you connect to your laptop. Two are downstream. In my case, I'm using those for my two USB-C monitors. I don't 100% understand all the nuances of USB-C versus Thunderbolt. They're the same physical cable. My understanding is Thunderbolt's sort of the highway, and Thunderbolt 5, you get a 5-lane highway versus Thunderbolt 4, where you've got a 4-lane highway. And obviously 5 is 20% more thunder in case you've been thunderstruck. But then USB-C is kind of the, the shape of the road. So you also get two old-fashioned USB ports. These are the newer USB 3 high-speed data and faster charging type ports. And you also have two video ports on the back. And there's a bit of a caveat to those two ports, which Anker pretty transparently spells out on their website. They also put a big old sticker on the device itself when you open it that basically says you can use one of these two ports. It's either the HDMI or the display port. You can't actually use both of those at the same time. Although I do believe you could plug a USB-C to DisplayPort or HDMI adapter into one of those ports and plug in two monitors that use more traditional HDMI or DisplayPort connections. You also get a card reader on the unit. I kind of wish it was on the front. I think that would make a little more sense. but it's on the left side of the unit. There's both a SD card reader as well as a tiny micro SD card reader. My understanding is they don't allow the maximum transfer speeds that you could get from some card readers. I think they're capped at something like 100 megabits a second. So if you need the ultimate in speed reading your flash memory cards, you may want to invest in some sort of external reader or something that plugs into the Thunderbolt port, either on the back of the dock or on your MacBook or whatever laptop you're using. On the back, you also get a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet connection. Some people have pointed out and complained that it's not a full 10 gigabit connection. My house is still stuck on good old-fashioned 1 gigabit Ethernet. Doesn't really help for internet stuff. There's a common illusion that having massive, 10 gigabit connections within your home is going to increase the speed of your internet. Generally, your internet itself is kind of the bottleneck. In our case, we have gigabit fiber to the house, so I'm not going to see more than a gigabit doing internet stuff, but it will help with transferring files to my backup server where I store video edits, large documents, large files, things like that. The other thing I like about the unit is the power circuitry is built into the unit itself. So there's no power brick. In fact, the cord is surprisingly svelte. It's not even a 3-pronger. It's just, a classic 2-prong kind of cord. And it's a pretty nice sort of flexi cord. It's not one of those more traditional power cords that you might find on your copier or your desktop computer that aren't necessarily very flexible. So I know that's a little bit of a nuanced comment, but you're presumably going to have this thing sitting on top of your desk and you're going to want to hide the cables or do some kind of funky cable routing. So having that little bit of extra flexibility is nice. So let's talk about the things that I don't really love about this unit. And probably the first is the price. In my case in particular, this was $400. I wasn't planning on spending. It was sort of an upgrade tax, if you will. One of those occurrences where you buy something new that's supposed to be better, faster, all these wonderful things, and then find out you need 3 other new things to actually make that thing work. And I feel like if this thing was, in the $200, $250 range, that would be a little more palatable. That would probably put it more on par with some of the other Thunderbolt type docks that are out there. And granted, I realize I could have gone with a Thunderbolt 2 or 3 or 4 dock, but I figured I'd get the latest and greatest, and who doesn't need 20% more Thunder in their lives? I also wish there were a few more ports on this thing. I think to really use it as a dock and get that one cable connection to your laptop, at a minimum, you're probably going to want to connect a couple monitors. You're probably going to want to connect a USB mouse and keyboard, or at least the wireless dongles that support those. If you're like me, you might have a couple or 3 other USB peripherals. I've got things like the Steam Deck and some other stuff. So to support all that, you're going to end up needing to plug in a USB hub of some sort. You only have one USB standard jack on the front. So if you want to have 2 or 3 things that you plug and unplug routinely on your desk on a day-to-day basis, you're going to have to put some sort of hub in the front of the thing, or have a hub running out of the back somewhere else. And if you've got 2 USB-C type monitors, then you've taken up all the Thunderbolt and USB-C capability that the unit supports, at least on the back of the device. I could see that being a problem if you're somebody that maybe has 2 USB-C monitors and then has a big storage array that runs over Thunderbolt, and you want to get those extra speeds. Then you're going to have to run one of your monitors to the HDMI or the display port. You might have to move some things around and kind of re-engineer your cabling to support the unit. I think that's ultimately what I'm going to end up doing, since I have a whole bunch of stuff jammed under the desk. My cable organization on this kind of consists of a piece of plastic C-channel that I've jammed a whole bunch of junk in. So if nothing else, maybe this thing forces me to reorganize my desk a little bit. So that was a bit of a long-winded review about a relatively non-complex project, at least from an end user perspective. Sure, there's all manner of technical wizardry in here that drives the $400 price point. It did solve my Mac problem of being able to support 2 USB-C monitors from a single MacBook Pro. So from that perspective, I'd give this thing 1.5 thumbs up. If it was $200, I'd probably give it a fairly enthusiastic 2 thumbs up. And like most new technologies, maybe we'll see the price of this thing drop a little bit. So this is the Big Heavy, and as always, I'm just a young gun with a quick fuse. I was uptight trying to let loose. We're at the end of the video, so take a number, and I hope that you enjoy your dock that is full of thunder. That was really terrible, wasn't it? Peace.